Hey guys, good morning. I am Richard Cuff, president of CTI Marketing, founder of Nasimba Business Alliance, and certified Master Greatness Coach here at GetReadyForGreatness.com. And it's that time for me to hit this treadmill again. And I told you guys that I was going to use these 3 days a week that I had to find the time to get it in. And no matter how busy you are, you got to take care of this one and only body that you got, right? So I plan on being around for quite some time, and there's a lot of work that I know that I need to do. So, but I wanted to make certain that I just jump on here real quick as I promised you that I will do, and just share with you my thoughts for the morning. I never really know what I'm going to say until I pull up here and actually start preparing the conversation. But I wanted to share something with you, and I've talked about this in some of my other posts. But it's the five dimensions of a wealth. It's basically the five dimensions of a wealth mindset, but five dimensions of wealth when you're measuring wealth by itself. Because and basically, when you think about a dimension, just think about the number of ways that you can measure something. You know, how many different ways is it possible to measure a thing? So let's say if I could only measure it in a straight line with just one straight line, it's this far across going in this one direction. That's one dimension. But if I can measure it going this way and that way, that's two dimensions. And if I can measure it this way, that way, and going back and forth, that's three dimensions. And that's where we live. We live in a three-dimensional space. But actually, we are conscious, I should say, of a three-dimensional space. But no dimension can just float out there by itself. So every dimension. So yeah, the our three dimensions sit inside of a fourth dimension, which sits inside of a fifth dimension. And yeah, it can get kind of mind-boggling. But if you think of time or time space as that fourth dimension, because time has to sit in space, then you recognize that there's something bigger going on, and bigger than who we are. And I believe, this is all theory, but I believe that wealth, the energy of wealth, comes from a higher dimension. And that's what I want to talk with you guys about. These five ways that we can measure wealth or the energy of wealth in our lives. And I use the easy way is these letters: Chloe, CLOI, Chloe P. Or depending on how you look at it, it can be Clip O. And I want to talk to you about that. Let's begin with that first dimension, the C. The the C dimension is the consumer of wealth. And that's where probably 80 to 90% of people are when they get wealth. The French used to call it, back in the days of right after slavery, there was this saying called nouveau riche, or newly rich. And then it kind of got translated over to Negro rich. You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh, they just came upon some money, so they don't really know what to do with that money. They're throwing it away. Well, that's that person whose mindset is the consumer of wealth. They're one dimensional. That's all they know. They know nothing else. The L is the laborer. The laborer does know where that or feels that, look, I had to work for this wealth, and I'm not going to easily give it up, or I'm not going to consume it. And for that reason, they may set some of that wealth aside. But then the laborer, though, often will find himself always laboring, and never becoming wealthy or never becoming rich. And I'll have to have a different conversation about the distinction between wealthy and rich. But just think of it this way: rich only expands in one area, wealth expands everywhere. That's basically the primary difference. So once you raise that level of vibration from consumer, the C, to the laborer, the L. Then you move up to the O. That's the owner of wealth. And now the owner mindset has a different way of thinking. The owner says, look, I own this restaurant, but I can't work it. I don't even plan on working. I want to own 500 restaurants. I cannot possibly be the laborer for that wealth. So what that owner mindset does says, I'm going to use this wealth from the third dimensional mindset to bring in someone on the second dimension, the laborer, the manager, the person that's going to help me manage all this wealth. And then that person is going to pass it on to the consumer of wealth. So last night I had a conversation with a friend, and she was looking to buy a house. And I'm always encouraging my friends, like, rather than buying a brand new house all ready to walk in, why don't you consider purchasing something as an investor and fix it up? And you can get a better deal. It may not be in the perfect neighborhood, but what you want to do is to begin to build your assets up, own some wealth, not just be the consumer. The end consumer is watching the cost of the house go up, either by the investors driving it up, which creates inflation, or the Federal Reserve driving the cost up, which slows inflation, but they're driving the cost up by raising the interest rate. So that's that takes us to the actual owner of the wealth, the bankers, the ones who are using their money to make money by putting it in the hands of those who are going to work for it, who will put it into the hands of those who are going to consume it. But if you were to split it there, that three-dimensional, those are the first three dimensions. Think of that as the physical realm of wealth. But remember what I said to you earlier, that wealth comes from somewhere, right? So as it comes from somewhere, and it goes somewhere, then that wealth will come from the higher dimensions. The higher dimensions is the I and the P. That's the investor of the wealth. And the investor of the wealth usually is that person that's experiencing generational wealth. You know, they're not new to this thing. They may be third or fourth generations. I remember when Sam Walton died, he left each of his 5 children $17.5 billion. That's like a lot. That's certainly not new wealth right there. But they turned that into investments, and now each one of the Walton family members is has at least doubled that wealth by now, maybe even tripled it. So, but those are investors. So the key is getting beyond the consumer, laborer, and owner of wealth. Get rid of that owner mindset. John Rockefeller said, you want to own nothing but control everything. And the way that you can control that is on the investor side of the house. See, interest rates going up does not bother investors. In fact, investors start feeling better because my money sits in cash, a lot of it, because I just don't like the stock market. I'm not that. Some people have a tolerance for the stock market. Some people have a tolerance for real estate. Some people have a tolerance for risky investments. I don't have that tolerance. At 62 years old, I'm not as tolerant of risk as I used to be, right? We all have different levels of tolerance. So when I put my money into a money market fund or some low interest, people go, well, that's only a little bit of interest. But when the feds raise the interest rates, well, the interest rates over there go up too. So now, wherein my money may have been kicking me out maybe a couple extra $100 a week, just small interest, but I can like live off of that. Now it went from, I'll just use a number. Let's just say small interest. That's small amount of money. That's not big money. But if I got enough money that can kick me $250 a week just off the interest, and the feds raise it up to where it goes from 250 to 400, maybe, that's that's a round of golf. That's a tank of gas. That's that much less worry that I have because my money is doing those things for me. But that's on the investment side. And then the P is the final one. That's the philanthropist. So we got Chloe, CLOIP, consumer, laborer, owner, first three dimensions. And then the higher dimensions, spiritual side, if you will, investor, I, and the P, philanthropist. That's where we all should be striving to get to. That when God gives us wealth, he gives us wealth so that we can do more with it. So if we were writing this down on a piece of paper and you made it look like a maybe a triangle, let's take the and see the O, put the O at the top of the triangle, and therefore the C and the L are at the left, on the left side of the triangle. So that means, think of it that you're trying to get up to the O and then over on the other side, right? So you get goes consumer, laborer, owner. And then when you get to the owner, you're going to go over to the other side to the I and the P, investor and philanthropist. And that owner of the wealth never wants to slide back to being the laborer. Get rid of the mindset of having to own it. And that's the number one way that you'll stay over on the investor side. Own nothing, but control everything. And guys, you got to log on to my thegreatnessshop.com. Download my 21 Days to Greatness ebook, and you can do your own 21 Days to Greatness challenge. I'm going to do a launch with my new book and the vision board brunch that we have planned coming up in September, on September 25th in Orlando. So the release of my book and the vision board brunch, or the launch of my book, in which it'll go on pre-sale starting in September 24th. But I plan on releasing it on my birthday, November 15th, and then we're going to have a spectacular kickoff as we do the final city for 2022 in our vision board brunch tour. Is going to be my hometown, of course, Jacksonville. So look for all of that. Remember, log on to thegreatnessshop.com. If you haven't followed me on any of the pages that you see on where the live appears, Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I'm on all of those platforms. But do follow me, like my page. Feel free to comment, shoot me an instant message if you have any questions. And I'd love to, if there's anything that has sparked your interest in this conversation about the 5 dimensions of wealth, definitely shoot me a message and we can talk more in detail if you have any specific questions that you're not comfortable with leaving in the comments. But till next time, I'm gonna go in here and hit this gym, y'all, and clear my mind and play some affirmations while I'm walking. Till next time, take care.